There are moments in life when a single act of kindness, something so small you barely think about it, becomes the turning point in a story you never imagined you were part of. For Marcus, a struggling single father living in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon, that moment happened on a freezing November evening when he carried 2 grocery bags in one hand, his daughter's backpack in the other, and found a shivering, homeless woman curled up on his front steps. He didn't know then that the decision he made in those few seconds, whether to walk past or stop, would alter the next chapter of their lives in ways he couldn't foresee. His life was already held together by threads, overdue bills, a broken furnace, a growing 8-year-old, and a job that barely covered the basics. But what he did that night would bring lawyers to his door weeks later and change everything. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and the power of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more heart-touching stories to you. Marcus had been living in survival mode ever since his wife passed away from a sudden illness 3 years earlier, leaving him alone to raise little Harper. He juggled everything: school runs, part-time construction shifts, night warehouse work, and the endless responsibilities that weighed on him like stones placed one by one on the same tired back. He often told himself that things would get better, but with each passing month, the struggle became a routine he no longer had the strength to question. The only thing that pushed him forward was Harper's laughter, thin and bright, like sunlight fighting through clouds. That night, when he saw the woman on his porch, she looked ghostly pale-faced, shaking hands, tangled brown hair peeking out from an oversized gray hoodie. She seemed fragile enough to crumble with a touch. Marcus had seen homeless people downtown, but not outside his quiet street. He paused, torn between concern and exhaustion. The woman looked up slowly, her eyes glassy yet strangely steady, as if she had already accepted that no one would stop for her. Something in the emptiness of her expression hit Marcus harder than he expected. Without thinking too deeply, he set down one grocery bag and asked if she had eaten. She shook her head. That was all he needed to know. He brought her inside, not far, just into the warmth of the entryway, and handed her a warm container of leftover soup. Harper watched curiously from behind the stairs, and Marcus gently reassured her. The woman introduced herself softly as Caroline, her voice so faint it almost disappeared into the room. She didn't share details about how she had ended up homeless, and he didn't push. All he saw was a hungry person in need of food, warmth, and humanity. He gave her a blanket, packed her a small bag of groceries despite barely having enough for himself, and let her rest until the worst of the cold passed. By morning she was gone, leaving nothing behind except a folded blanket on the porch rail. Days turned into weeks. Marcus thought about the incident, absorbed again by the relentless rhythm of survival. Winter bills stacked up like silent threats on his kitchen counter. He patched his daughter's worn-out shoes with tape. He skipped several meals so Harper could have more. He wondered every night how long he could keep this up, and still he never complained. 3 weeks later, everything changed. It was a rainy afternoon when a black sedan rolled into his driveway, sleek, polished, completely out of place next to his peeling paint and squeaky fence. 2 well-dressed lawyers stepped out, umbrellas in one hand, briefcases in the other. Marcus's heart dropped. He thought it was about unpaid bills or some legal notice he had forgotten. He opened the door with dread weighing down his stomach, but the lawyers introduced themselves with warm professionalism and explained they represented Caroline, the same woman he had fed on his porch. Before Marcus could process anything, they revealed who she really was: a wealthy businesswoman who had stepped away from her life after a personal tragedy and had been living anonymously for months, testing the world around her, searching for something real in a life that had felt hollow despite the riches. They told him Caroline had never forgotten his kindness, especially because he gave without hesitation, without expecting anything, and without treating her differently once he knew she had nothing. Then came the shock. Caroline had requested that they deliver something to him, a deed to a small, fully paid for house in the same city, along with enough funds to cover a year of living expenses. She wanted him and Harper to have stability, warmth, and the chance at a life without constant struggle. Marcus felt dizzy, overwhelmed, and unable to speak. The lawyers explained she wasn't asking for anything in return. She simply wanted to repay the one moment of compassion that had helped her believe in people again. That night, when Harper came home from school, Marcus hugged her so tight that she asked if something was wrong. He explained gently, and she cried happy tears, understanding in her small but wise way that their lives were changing. Marcus realized that every night he had prayed for strength, every day he had pushed through exhaustion. Every meal he had given up, none of it had gone unnoticed in the grand scheme of life. Kindness had circled back in a way he could never have predicted. A few days later, Caroline visited. She looked healthier, grounded, no longer the fragile woman on the porch. She thanked him deeply for the humanity he had shown her. Marcus assured her that she owed him nothing, but she insisted that some gestures deserved to be carried forward. Harper hugged her like an old friend. Their connection, forged in hardship and compassion, felt strangely like family. If this story has touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us tell more emotional, inspiring stories that remind the world that kindness matters. Before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe one act of kindness can change everything?